So, man, it's a pleasure for me first and foremost because I got a defender with me. So now we're gonna talk a little bit of defense. How it's not just leave somebody out on an island. I love how you're constantly communicating, and in that communication, how hard has it been for some of the newer guys to really now get a guy that's not from here, that wasn't taught to play in the zone only, but actually man-to-man defense and could communicate with guys? How hard is that for the young guys?
I feel like we're doing a pretty good job with it. It's
When you were growing up, did you know who Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was?
yes, I've heard of him.
You bet. No. And so I say that because you won an award in college.
I did.
You know, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Award.
Yes, I did.
That's impressive. Now, I thought for sure that meant you had to shoot a sky hook. You know, you just had and wore goggles. But
I had a little post game in college.
I know, and you still do. Tell me how that transition has been from college, then going to Toronto, and then getting here as far as your development.
Yeah, it's been great for me. I think that's been one of the main reasons for my success. Just the fact that I can go out there and do those little things. On top of that, I was able to, over the years, expand my game more and more.
That time, Suns play kind of shadow defense. Jakob Poeltl taking over. Oh, mama!
Like in Toronto, in my first 2 years, I had a fairly minimal role. We had a bunch of other guys out there that could score the basketball. we had some talented players on that team, so I just tried to focus on my job, and that kept me on the court. Mm-hmm. And every time you're out on that court, you learn from it. You gain new experiences. You find different angles and stuff, like where, okay, maybe this is a situation where I can go and try and do something.
Rejected by Duncan! Rejected by Duncan! That's an effort here by Tim Duncan.
That one blocked is ran up again and again!
Trying to take it to the rim and was denied.
Welcome to a very special live for Pensar Basketball, and I'm really excited to talk about this one. Did a lot of deep diving into Jakob Poeltl over the last few days, and honestly, I love unselfish basketball players. I love smart basketball players. A huge reason why I'm such a fan of OG and Scotty has always been because they're so unselfish and they're such team players. And Jakob Poeltl has been such a welcome addition to this team, and he has been so great. His chemistry with Fred VanVleet is off the charts. But as much as I hear numbers about how unstoppable the Jakob Poeltl pick and roll is with Fred VanVleet and the impact he's had at the rim, and I can talk about how he's gone from basically a 92nd percentile defender with the Spurs all the way up to a 96th percentile defender overall in the season, just perhaps a small window into his impact for the Toronto Raptors thus far. It is just shocking to me just how much of an impact he really has had on both ends relative to other centers and how they tend to impact. And really, I think small sample size was my biggest concern, that, teams don't know how to scout this. They haven't seen it for an entire season, but the more I see it, the more I realize there isn't really much to stop. He isn't really easy to stop, and he's quite smart. So when you do try to take something away, he's actually very good at going to his counters. His development and his work with the San Antonio Spurs is showing. This is not the player who left in that trade, and so the Raptors did get back something completely different than what they shipped out. And it's interesting to me that sometimes we talk about players very differently because of raw numbers like 25 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists. And I wanted to do a deep dive into the numbers, in my opinion, that really matter, which are impact numbers, per possession numbers. These types of things, they don't necessarily get all the glory on ESPN, and they may not always get the big shout outs from casual fans, but those who understand basketball understand, quite frankly, that Jakob Poeltl is having an impact of an all-NBA player since joining the Raptors. In this video, we're going to go look at Jakob's impact. We're going to look at some film breakdowns from the Milwaukee Bucks. We're going to see how he impacts offense without the ball, how he moves, how he sort of oscillates with how he jives with Scotty, OG, Pascal, and Fred, and how he makes their lives so much easier. We're going to look at how he scores, the interesting ways that he reacts to defenses dropping against him and not really respecting his jump shot. We're going to look at his defense. And, of course, we're going to compare him to 4 specific players. One is Pascal Siakam, his teammate. The other is Brook Lopez, a guy who is widely considered one of the best centers in the NBA and is anchoring the best defense in basketball and the best team in basketball in the Milwaukee Bucks. We're going to compare him to an MVP candidate in Joel Embiid and see just how big that gap is, because it is big, but I mean, it's worth noting that, Jakob is not an MVP candidate, but he is still a hell of a basketball player. And we're going to compare him to one of my favorite players of all time. That jersey back there is a Tim Duncan champion jersey. That jersey also happens to be the first thing that I ever bought with my paycheck, my first paycheck ever, and that's what I bought. I bought a Tim Duncan jersey because I loved Tim Duncan, and I loved the San Antonio Spurs. So shout out to Spurs Nation. If any of you are checking in on your, former player and seeing how he's doing in the North, he's doing great, and he's doing better than any one of us could have possibly imagined. I don't even think Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster, as excited as they probably were to have him back, I don't think anyone saw this coming. So this was exciting. Please do hit the like. It does help get this stream out to more people. This is a random Monday night stream. These streams, unlike the post-game streams, which end up being populated by 400, 200, 300, 400 people, these streams usually are sort of off the cuff. They're random and they're sometimes not announced, but people do get to watch them later, and I think you're going to really enjoy this one. I have a lot of good things to say about Jakob Poeltl, and honestly, I've been looking for something good to say about the Raptors after not a lot of nice things to say over the last month, and this is something that I can genuinely say from the heart. I've really enjoyed watching what Jakob Poeltl is doing. Now, elephant in the room, I was not a fan of this trade. I was not a fan of this trade at all. Part of me knew that he would make us better. Of course I knew he'd make us better. He's much better than Khem Birch, and, but I just didn't like the idea of doubling down on this core. Well, he's a part of this core now, and he changes what this core means going forward. He really does change the dynamics of this team, and I really hope that they bring him back at a reasonable contract. But to any nerdy analytics guys out there, if he continues to do this, and if he does this somehow in a playoff series or something, that number is going to go up, and it's going to keep going up, because GMs around the league are not stupid, and what he's doing is something that very few centers in this league are doing. It's not Isaiah Hartenstein. It's going beyond that now. It's not quite, Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic, but he should firmly, as a Raptor, he's been a top 5 center in the NBA, and we're going to show that the numbers do prove that. To those people in the chat saying, Tim Duncan, are you insane? Don't worry. I'm not talking 97, 98 Tim Duncan. I'm not talking 99, 2000 Tim Duncan. I'm talking Tim Duncan a little bit older, which ironically is the player that Jakob Poeltl learned from, a much older Tim Duncan. The two spent a lot of time. Duncan is obviously very close to the Spurs, and so much of basketball is positional stuff. It's learning the ins and outs of how to, guard a guy when he does a certain thing, how to respond to a particular coverage. And basketball is just, it's so much, we talk about inches, vertical, wingspan, hand size, we talk about stats, but really one of the most important stats in basketball is the 6 inches between your ears. And Jakob Poeltl is just so smart, and you can tell that he's been really coached up in that Spurs system. He's been so good. So first, let's okay, let me know, chat. You guys want a film breakdown first, or do you want the analytics breakdown first? I'm literally going to go with whatever you guys want. Also, a little bit later in the show, we're going to be doing a giveaway. That was sneaky. The reason why we wanted to do this live, because this is a special live. This is to celebrate something as well. We are celebrating 1 million channel views. Yeah, we passed it yesterday. 1 million channel views. So that's awesome. That's really cool. I mean, granted, we didn't really start putting full force effort into this channel until last summer, but to come this far this quickly is amazing. I can't tell you how many YouTubers out there go through weeks and weeks and weeks, and if not months and sometimes years, pedaling in that 20, 30, 40, 50 views, range. And it's hard. It's hard to get your name out there. It's hard to get the algorithm to pick you up. So to get to 1 million views, that's immeasurable. It's awesome. And to just basically be doing Raptors content. This is not an NBA channel necessarily, as it will eventually evolve into, but so far it's just been pretty much Raptors stuff. So thank you so much, Raptors Nation. It means a lot to me. Oak Tree, thank you so much. Okay, I'm hearing a lot of I'm hearing a lot of analytics. Okay, we like analytics, so let's live up to the. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. Okay, so let's look at the numbers. Okay, so this is pretty cool. So we're gonna start with the one player where I think Jakob does not have a favorable. So we're gonna start with him, comparing him to an MVP like Joel Embiid. I don't even know why I'm doing this. Honestly, I knew when I did the comparison that this was not gonna be good for Yak, but I want to say that, to everyone out there who thinks, Pascal Siakam and Jason Tatum, that's not a big gap. Actually, the gap between Pascal Siakam and Jason Tatum is very similar to the gap between Joel Embiid and Jakob Poeltl. And yeah, so here's the gap. So in terms of PER, a stat that I do not respect, but often, favors bigs who are efficient. Jakob is killing it. 25.7 PER is the highest PER of any Raptor center in franchise history. In fact, almost every single one of these numbers on a high enough volume for a Raptor starter are the greatest in Raptor history. Jonas Valanciunas put up some beast numbers in terms of PER, and that stat always favored him because he got a lot of rebounds. But in terms of box plus minus, defensive, stuff, assists, like this is the most well-rounded. The number of games he played is a small enough sample size, but it's also a large enough sample size to say it's just not variance and fluke, right? Yeah, so let me just say that with a straight face. Jakob Poeltl, in all honesty, this version of Jakob Poeltl has been the best center in franchise history. This, handful of games that he's played for the Toronto Raptors has been, like, the impact has eclipsed even that of a Marc Gasol or an Antonio Davis, who was an all-star. A Hakeem Olajuwon at the end of his career. Like, this is on some next level shit. Okay, so obviously the this is not going to be in Yak's favor, but where I think it's worth noting, first of all, I think what this really shows is just how great Joel Embiid has been this year, right? More than anything. I mean, look at the points per 100 possessions at nearly 48 points per 100 possessions. It's insane. His usage load is just crazy. Obviously, he's been a great player, but where Jakob does have the edge is rebounding. He's been a better rebounder than Embiid. His rebound percentage and obviously rebounds per 100 are ahead. He's been a better shot blocker. His block percentage is higher. And Joel Embiid is a really good shot blocker. 4.6 is a very respectable block percentage, but Jakob has been a better paint protector thus far. In terms of box plus minus, the gap between 6 and 9.1, honestly, 9.1 is MVP range. And Jakob, for the first 8 to 9 games, was flashing in the 8 range. He's fallen off a little bit, but to say this is respectable is insane. It's not respectable. It's crazy. 6.1 box plus minus is higher than any box plus minus that it's actually, I think Vince Carter only posted a 6.1 box plus minus or above like twice or thrice in his career. This is a number that is usually reserved for superstars and high level stars and like the best the best all-stars in the world. This level of impact is crazy, and honestly, a lot of other analytics would also back it up. I don't have like the bandwidth to go through 100 different analytics to show you, but everything from defensive Raptor, offensive Raptor, LeBron, everything is in agreement that Jakob Poeltl has been amazing. Moving on to a center that he just faced last night, who gets a lot of credit for being one of the best centers in the NBA and being a stretch big and all that stuff. And granted, we could only dream that Jakob Poeltl could shoot like Brook Lopez. But in terms of the impact, is actually very, very decidedly in Jakob's favor for the Raptors, not on the season, but for the Raptors. The only thing that Brook really edges him out in is as a shot blocker. And ironically, I was watching a Thinking Basketball podcast the other day, and they compared Brook Lopez to Tim Duncan. And I agree. Lopez has had a lot of Duncan-esque impact over the last couple of years where, in terms of as a paint protector, and this year he's just moving so much better in the paint. Like Burke has been incredible, his hips, his mobility, his ability to track the ball. And we'll see it in the film breakdown later, but Jakob is no slouch in this department either. And he's really good at tracking the ball, blocking guards and, staying with them and, sort of staying hip to hip. Very difficult to do as a 7-footer to be that good at that. But yeah, so in terms of true shooting percentage, he's been more literally he edges him across the board. He's a better rebounder. He's got a way bigger playmaking load and he's better at it. Points per 100 is almost dead even. At least, it's in Jakob's favor. And that's saying a lot because obviously this is going to lean heavily usually in favor of a guy who is taking threes, obviously more points from threes and hits his free throws a little bit better. But Jakob has done really well in terms of finishing around the paint, and his true shooting percentage really does show that at 67.2%. It's beast, right? It's incredible. Obviously, and yeah, we're close. We're close in terms of blocks. We're very close in terms of points. Rebounding edge, obviously, to Yak. The win shares per 48 really is the stat that I think blew my mind when I was looking at Yak. And even if you look back at the Joel Embiid stuff, they're close. In terms of win shares, they're really close. And win shares is one of the better impact metrics in my opinion. And I really do feel like it really does show the impact of him and how he's impacting the game on both ends. Moving on to something that, I think is going to blow some people's minds, and this is him compared to Pascal Siakam. Now, in terms of PER, obviously a stat that I think is completely bullshit and overvalues efficient rebounders. Naturally, Jakob is always going to be better than Pascal Siakam in terms of PER. But the box plus minus, is nuts, right? Pascal was floating at 2.5 just a few days ago. He's had some good games over the last week, so he's now up to 2.7, but it's not anywhere close to the 6. And what Jakob has been basically for the Raptors since joining them is right around what Pascal was for the Raptors in terms of impact for the first 10 games, which is what analysts and media pundits in this city were calling an MVP candidate. So if Pascal Siakam through the first 10 games was an MVP candidate, and then Jakob Poeltl for the last 10 games has been an MVP candidate for the Raptors. The win shares per 48, literally almost exactly twice. True shooting percentage, 12 percentage points above. Not surprising, obviously. Pascal is a lot of his offense is self-generated. A lot of it is more difficult shots. I get it. This was never going to be in his favor, but it's still worth noting that offense is just more efficient for him. Scoring is more efficient for him. He's considerably better as a rebounder. Obviously, a lot worse as a. It's not worse as a passer. Jakob's passer rating is amazing, but obviously, Siakam's creation load is just so much higher. He often runs point forward for the Raptors. He gets a lot of assists. Now, here the numbers sort of skew into two different players, right? So if I were to tell you on one hand, you have a guy who averages, per 100 possessions, 32, 10, and 10, you're probably going to say that guy's better than the guy who averages 26, 16, and 4.5. But I think a lot of Siakam's advantages here, every single advantage that he has over Jakob every advantage that Pascal has over Jakob has to do with usage, in my opinion. If you wanted to go, and I'm not suggesting they do this, please don't someone misquote me and say that I'm suggesting they run their offense through Jakob Poeltl or something like that. He's obviously got some limitations, but so does Siakam, right, in terms of efficiency. So what I'm saying is every advantage across the board that Siakam has over Jakob Poeltl has to do with usage and creation load. That's it. That's literally all he does better. He shoots more, he passes more, he handles the ball more. That's it. If you wanted to have a game, let's just say, tomorrow or the next day, there's a game where Jakob is forced into a 26, 27, 28% usage game, I think his numbers would be better. And that's a sort of staggering reality. We have to go back for a second and realize that in the draft, the Raptors themselves picked Jakob Poeltl over Pascal Siakam. You can argue this is probably because they thought that they can get Siakam later. It's not saying anything, but they valued Jakob a lot. They valued Jakob over Domantas Sabonis, and Masai Ujiri doesn't make mistakes in the draft. So they saw a guy who was the 9th best player, or easily, if they picked him 9th, possibly they saw him as a top 6, top 7 player in that draft. So saying that, he is on par-ish with guys like Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam, well, honestly, if he wasn't, then it wouldn't. It almost makes no sense that you would have drafted him that high. So they obviously had some very, very big expectations for him as a prospect when they drafted him out of Utah. And I think we're sort of seeing now what the realized vision of him is in terms of how they want to use him. Now, here's the one that kind of blew my mind. And this is Jakob Poeltl versus 09-010 Spurs. Now, if you want to talk about the closest fit among all the players that I just compared him to, Joel Embiid, who's an MVP candidate, who's not comparable to, and Brook Lopez, who's a stretch big, who he's not completely comparable to, and Pascal Siakam, who's a twitchy forward and, primary creator, secondary creator, who he's not completely comparable to. Tim Duncan, circa 2009-2010, in terms of his role on offense, greatly diminished from his early days playing with, Sean Elliott and David Robinson and guys like that. The second, Spurs fans will know, and people who watch the Spurs will know, that Duncan went through several iterations throughout his career in terms of how he adjusted and evolved as his athleticism declined a little bit. He was just very selfless. He would save himself for the playoffs, and the regular season became more of a marathon as opposed to a sprint for Tim Duncan. And so by 2009, 2010, all the way up till the very end, one of the things that I really admired about Tim Duncan, which was not the case for guys like Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, and probably will not be the case for a guy like LeBron James or Dame Lillard or Carmelo Anthony or any of the other superstars that you think of in that era, is that he remained a net positive. Always. Because he never overestimated his skill set, his athleticism. He always was willing to adjust. And this is something that I project going forward for this dude, Scotty Barnes. I expect that he will evolve gracefully as well as a player, and I think Jakob Poeltl is of the same ilk. I think he's someone who can just adjust his role as his skill set, athleticism, etc. So some people have asked, how long would you like to sign him for? Let's go hockey and let's go, baseball contracts. Let's sign him for 10 years. This is a guy who's going to be, hopefully a cornerstone of your franchise. Not the cornerstone, not the franchise player, but a staple. He and Christian Koloko is a great problem to have going forward. And quite frankly, if you want my straight up honest truth, where he is now, where Koloko will be next year, this center rotation is better than Jonas Valanciunas and Jakob Poeltl 5 years ago, in my opinion. And that's saying a lot because Jak and Jonas were part of like some very, very big teams as a center rotation, but it's been interesting, this whole 6'9" experiment and Vision 6'9", and I've been pretty adamant that you don't need a 7-footer, and now you have 2 7-footers, and they're 2 of my 5 favorite players on the team. It's hilarious. I remain steadfast. You didn't need a 7-footer, but you do need this skill set, which is paint protection, passing, creation. And yeah, when we go into the film breakdown, we're going to see that. But in terms of his comparison to Tim Duncan here, Duncan was famous for, like some people said, he was very boring to watch. He wasn't a hypey player. Well, look at the PER. It's almost dead even. Box plus minus, almost dead even. Win shares per 48. Actually, the edge is to Jakob, as was the PER. True shooting percentage, 10% better. Honestly, Tim Duncan did take mid-range shots, bank shots, etc. Not his most efficient season by any means. His true shooting percentage was a lot better earlier in his career. But as a rebounder, almost dead even. 18.7 versus 18.9 is almost negligible. As a playmaker, Duncan was just a hair better in terms of assist percentage. Their passer rating was actually pretty similar. Points per 100, obviously Duncan was a more featured guy in the offense, and he played in a better offense with better players. But, the points per 100 is relatively similar. So are the rebounds, so are the assists. I mean, honestly, and Jakob edges him in blocks. If you showed me these two numbers, I would say these are very, very comparable players. So how old was Tim Duncan in 2009, 2010? He was 33 years old. Okay, so 33-year-old Tim Duncan was still a star. He's still an all-star. So at the very least, what I'm trying to say here is that Jakob Poeltl is definitely an all-star. He is an all-star level player. Shit, if Jamal Magloire and Theo Ratliff and, Dikembe Mutombo later in his career with the Sixers could be all-stars, then Jakob Poeltl is definitely an all-star. And, if guys like Jaren Jackson, who are having like crazy impact, Brook Lopez, I believe, has made an all-star team. Look, it's not crazy to say Jakob Poeltl, if the Raptors have a great season next year, could be an all-star. I still believe that there's one too many cooks in the kitchen, and there's a little bit of spacing issues that the Raptors do need to resolve in the offseason, for sure. You need to put some spacing, you need to put some movement shooters around him to fully unlock him. But I do believe that this is something that the Raptors can build forward with. And, if you end up losing Gary or Fred or whatever, and you end up replacing it with a draft pick or whatever, it's not going to be the end of the world. I do think going forward, that if the Raptors can get them under 20 million, they're a better team. All right. Now, briefly to take a little bit of a break, just a moment before we get into the film highlights. This is not going to be a super long live, guys. Don't you worry. I want people to be able to watch this without feeling the exhaustion of watching a, 2.5 hour live. And, if you do want to call and talk about some of this stuff, the link is in the description. So we'll take a couple of calls at the end, no problem. But first, I just want to give a shout out to Queensway Automotive Group. Thank you so much for sponsoring this channel. It's a great group of guys. If you need a car guy in your life, they're your guys. They've talked about exotic cars, having great deals. I don't know a lot about cars, to be honest. Sorry about that. I don't know a lot about cars. I have never known a lot about cars. I don't pretend to know a lot about cars. But one thing I do know is that having a real estate agent in my life, saved my life so many times when I just needed to know about neighborhoods. And sometimes it just helps to have an expert in your life who can take care of one of the biggest decisions that you're ever going to make, or one of the big decisions that you're going to make in a year. And, sometimes that just comes down to having people who are knowledgeable and are good people that know what the hell they're doing in that space. So, Queensway Automotive Group, check the link in the description. If you're looking for a car, if you're looking for a hookup, you're looking for information on cars, definitely give them a shout. They're a group of young entrepreneurs in the GTA, and who doesn't want to support that? My next shout out, if you haven't watched my interview with Scotty Barnes, trainer, please do so. A lot of the stuff that he said is really ringing true. And yeah, it was a really cool conversation. So if you haven't watched that, and after this, if this ends up being too short for you, just go check your browse history. If you haven't checked out one of our other videos, there's a lot of good stuff. There's and if you want to, hey, like, Rob, you were really, really wrong about the Jakob Poeltl trade. I'll acknowledge that. I didn't expect him to be this good, but man, was I really, really, really right about the Will Barton signing. I'm just going to toot my own horn there and pat myself on the back for that. He's been abysmal for this team. Some stats are coming out recently. He's been just absolutely terrible, and honestly is having the worst stretch of his life. I really do hope the Raptors do correct that at some point. Now, moving on to the film breakdown and how Jakob Poeltl impacts the Raptors. This is a really fascinating thing. So here's what happened. I went in to download the Milwaukee Bucks game from last night, and something kind of crazy happened. Only half the download completed. And usually this would send me into a panic, because I'd be like, oh no, I have to. So I was thinking about re-downloading it, and then I was just like, you know what? If you give me 5 minutes of Jakob Poeltl playing basketball, I can pretty much create 5 minutes of impact videos. Like, he's just on every single play, make, miss, whatever. He is just so good at making an impression. He doesn't just stand there. He's always doing something, and it's really interesting to watch. So I don't know how much you guys are watching Jakob Poeltl when he doesn't have the ball and how he's freeing up his teammates, but he's done so much, not just for Fred VanVleet, he's done so much for other players too. So let's just take a quick look at his impact. And I'm going to guide you through this, and we're gonna talk about it as it's going. And don't worry, it's not all gonna look like this. There are some brighter colored, but to avoid some copyright strike or whatever, the wider images are going to be a little bit desaturated and a little bit faded out. So this is a play. We're just gonna go back here for a second. Okay. So in this play, we're going to see Fred VanVleet pass off to Scotty Barnes. So first of all, you immediately see Jakob setting this screen, and it's a big screen, right? He's a big human being, and he sets them wide, and we'll see it more in the close-up, but you see it right there how much he just adds that little extra push-off. So the Bucks successfully switch. Now you can see the Brook Lopez is starting to sort of shade over on Scotty Barnes, but Jakob Poeltl is not just going to let him off the hook by doing nothing. So Jakob is going to relocate. And immediately when he relocates, he gives Scottie a passing target. Now we talk about movement shooters, well, also movement cutters and guys who actually locate to spots on the court that make it easier for their teammates. And boom. Now, Jakob is not a shooter, and this was my biggest concern coming into this trade, that Jakob would not be able to shoot and that defenses would not really respect him. But he is incredible from within 8 feet. So even though he's not a shooter, the defense is still going to have to respect him, and Brook Lopez plays vertical here, and Jakob goes straight past him. Now, ironically, earlier in that clip with Bruce Bowen, he was talking about the skyhook, and Jakob gives him a little skyhook. And to those who actually watched him in college, like I did, you'll remember that that was a pretty big staple in his game, and post-game in general was a big thing. So this is a closer up view of that play, and you just sort of see it a little bit more clearly. And every single play that we're going to look at is going to follow the same format, where I'll break it down for you slowly. And so even though he misses that shot, it doesn't really matter. It's a great shot, and he'll make that more often than he'll miss it. Brook Lopez just happens to be, like, if you look at where Brook contests his release, I think that probably even caught Jakob off guard. He probably hasn't played a lot against Brook Lopez in the past year. The Bucks rest their guys all the time. He was playing in the West, Brook's playing in the East. I'm sure he'll adjust once he watches the footage, but Brook is just incredible at contesting the release. So here we have a second play here. Fred VanVleet, of course, starting the ball. And look at how high Jakob sets that screen for Fred to get him that inch of separation. But now he doesn't just do what someone like a Precious Achiuwa often does, which is just stand there. Koloko is actually really good at this too. He rolls hard, and he makes himself available as a target. He keeps his hands up. And right now, Giannis is going to have to make a choice to guard him, right? And so is Brook Lopez, and boom. Now, even though he misses, again, that's just Brook Lopez being Brook Lopez and disrupting something. But honestly, against 90% of centers, this is going right in. Right there, you see that, and that's just wide open. So that's about 14 feet from the basket, and he hops into it, and you can see Brook Lopez is just a giant human being, and he makes him miss it. But again, we've seen him make that shot more often than we've seen him miss it. Going forward again, now this time he's going to set a pick on Jrue Holiday for Fred VanVleet. And once again, you see him do the exact same thing, which is he's going to roll downhill, and he's going to put some pressure on the defense. And now, whether it's Brook or whether it's Giannis, they're going to have to respond to him, but they don't, because Fred passes off, and boom. He stays. He doesn't keep rolling. That was actually the most impressive thing about that, is he doesn't just keep rolling into a congested paint. He makes sure to stop so that he gives himself like he gives his teammate a passing angle. This is something that I have seen, the Raptors struggle with far too often. And this really just comes from solid coaching and basketball IQ. Boom. And this time he makes it. So we've seen a couple of misses. Now we see a make. So this is the whole play, just a little bit closer, broken down. Boom. Just look at how big he makes himself on that screen and how much space he's giving Fred VanVleet. Right. Sorry, guys. There's 37 comments. I'm not looking at the comments right now, so I apologize. While I'm doing this, I can't look at the comments, but I will definitely respond if there's some super chats or anything like that, or stickers. I promise I'll say thank you after. So yeah, like there's no moment where he just stops, and boom, he gives Scottie the perfect outlet, and Scottie gets the assist. Now, this is Jakob sort of flashing behind the defense. Again, something that Chris Boucher does a lot and is really good at, but something that, the Raptors could use a little bit more of. Jakob's just a better finisher at the rim than Boucher, but this is going to be another miss. And again, that's Giannis Antetokounmpo being an incredibly long player. But again, what he did tonight, taking these 18 shots, I was listening to the Raptors podcast. Don't get me started on that podcast, but they were talking about how it's so weird to see Jakob having 18 shot attempts. Honestly, if not him, then who? I don't mind him last night, especially with Scottie out. Like, I don't mind him having 18 shot attempts at all. Like, do it again. Do it 5 times. I tell you, if it's not against Brook Lopez and, if it's not against Brook Lopez and Giannis Antetokounmpo, instead of making 10, he's going to make 12 or 13. So he's good. So here you'll see, and this is really just, look at how quickly Giannis recovers to this. And this is where maybe just, I don't know, I think this is an okay shot, but he covers it. He doesn't get blocked, but you know, it's close. Now here, Fred VanVleet drives on Drew Holiday, gets all the way, and boom, gets blocked. This is an example of a play where I would like to see Fred VanVleet pass. Just watch. Boom. How easy a pass would that have been for Fred VanVleet instead of going over Drew Holiday? And I mean, this is honestly, this is not meant to be shade or a low light. But if this is one video that, you know, if this is one play, which is about one of 7 plays that Fred VanVleet made like this last night, where I'm just like, you know what, a slightly higher basketball IQ, Jakob Poeltl is doing everything for you here. He's done everything for you. He even moved in to give you an easier target. And to be honest, Chris Paul or any gifted passer would make this play 10 times out of 10, but, you know, leave it to Fred VanVleet to get blocked by freaking Brook Lopez. Here's another example. Now, this one, Fred VanVleet scores, but I want you to see, very slow down, how much Jakob Poeltl is doing to keep Brook Lopez occupied on this play. Now, hell of a shot by Fred VanVleet. He kind of gets away with a hook. Like, watch how he hooks. Do you guys see it with his arm? He hooks Drew Holiday. Holiday falls. And he gets it, right? Little chicken wing there. But the only reason that Brook Lopez cannot block this is because he incorrectly assumes that Fred VanVleet would be willing to pass in that situation, and he most likely will not. But because he does not, you know, and because Jakob Poeltl knows exactly the distance to keep, right? He doesn't get in Fred VanVleet's way, which means he maps the angle perfectly, right? Because if Jakob Poeltl, like, let's take this play back for 2 seconds here. If Jakob Poeltl, sorry, that's the one where he got blocked. So let's say right now, Yak decides he's going to move out. Well, now Lopez has exactly enough room to actually cheat off of him and block this shot. And let's say he goes too far in. Well, now Brook Lopez can cover both Fred VanVleet's layup and Jakob Poeltl. By maintaining this sort of 7 feet of distance, 7-8 feet or whatever, however far they are away from them, he's actually using his gravity as a roller to keep Brook Lopez from blocking Fred VanVleet's shot. So when I say that, honestly, like, Fred VanVleet owes Jakob Poeltl a lot of money in terms of just helping him, this is exactly one of those things. Because I tell you, earlier in the season, I think there was a play against the Chicago Bulls almost identical to this, and Fred VanVleet got swatted. So this is the distance and the difference between having a guy who knows what he's doing in Jakob Poeltl and having a guy who maybe doesn't know what he's doing in sometimes Chris Boucher or Pascal Siakam or whoever, right? So, boom. Now, again, this is one of those plays where Siakam does for Jakob what Jakob often does for other people. And one of the things that I've noticed, and I don't know if this is just the fact that they grew together or the fact that they really like each other, but I love how Pascal Siakam plays with and for Jakob Poeltl. I wish he would do it for OG Anunoby and Scotty Barnes and Gary Trent Jr., but he doesn't seem willing to do it for anybody but Jakob Poeltl. And he's willing to set screens for Jakob. He's willing to move off ball when Jakob has the ball. Like, he doesn't just stand around demanding the ball. These two just have a great chemistry. And I hope, you know, if Pascal Siakam is going to be part of this team going forward, I hope he can develop the type of chemistry he has with Jakob and the type of relationship and trust and sort of synergistic energy that these two have. I hope that he can develop it with more of his teammates, because he doesn't have this with anybody else. But here's something where Jakob Poeltl attacks space. Now, again, how do you react to a defender not playing you when you're 18 to 20 feet from the basket? Well, here, you know, earlier in the season, we saw a lot of criticism against Scotty Barnes for not punishing drop, you know, and Jakob is not going to take a jump shot here, right? He has not ever really been a jump shooter. However, there's just enough space right now where a defender standing still cannot stop a 7-foot freight train coming into the paint. You just have to drive. And this is a very simple read, and it works for 3 reasons. Number one, Jakob is quick. He's quick enough to do this and avoid, you know, picking up a charge or doing something stupid, which is, you know, often what OG Anunoby or, Precious Achua or someone like that would do. They'd probably pick up a charge in the situation or pick up the ball a little bit late. This is something that Kristaps Porzingis does well as well. Is he just goes right into it and boom. Right now, Pascal is basically keeping Brook Lopez from contesting the shot, and that's why it's going to go in. And even though Brook Lopez still contests the shot, it's just a little late, and Jakob just gets it clean. So here we're going to see Jakob Poeltl set a screen for, and Fred rejects the screen, and he ends up missing the shot. But just take a look at this. So this is what Jakob does to free up. Now look at how much Scottie and Jakob are going to do to free Fred off for the catch so that he can shed Drew Holiday. And Drew Holiday is just going to go around. He avoids getting picked off, and boom. Jakob and Scottie have a little bit of bumper cars there. They kind of get confused for a second. And now you're going to see reject. Now, a little pocket pass here this is going right in for Jakob, right? This is yet another example where, Fred VanVleet has been really good at passing to Jakob, but last night there were at least 3 to 4 plays where he should have done it, and he didn't. So, yeah, you say 18 shot attempts is a lot for Jakob Poeltl. I say, based on how that game went, he should have had about 23 to 24. Here we go again. Here's another one. Now, I believe this is defense. So we've now moved over to the defensive highlights, and there's 3 of these, and I think that they're worth talking about. Here we go. So watch how Jakob keeps distance, right? He's not hugging up on Drew Holiday, allowing him to go right past him. He's not completely backing off. He's just a master at keeping the right distance from his player. And Drew Holiday is shifty, and he's quick, and he's an all-star. And he's not, he's not Ja Morant, but he's incredible. And to block this shot this way, Drew challenged him. He challenged him at the rim, and he blocks it clean. No foul on the bottom. Is a clean block. And the reaction time required to, stay with a guard, track a guard that way, and then still block it. There aren't a lot of centers who could have done that. So that's really impressive. Christian Koloko, also, just a short plug for Christian Koloko. He also does that really well. Now here, Fred gets screened, does not recover in the play, starts chasing. I don't know what he's doing there, but yeah, this is sometimes, the action that gets the Raptors in a lot of trouble is, for bigger guys, people talk about Fred VanVleet's defense, and one of the things that people don't necessarily realize is he's good at, he makes up for his lack of size with his heavy hands, and because in that situation, if Drew Holiday exposes the ball, he might be able to poke it away or something like that. But in a lot of cases, he's a little bit limited because if the guy doesn't show the ball, he's just in no man's land. He can't really contest from behind like a Matisse Thybulle or a Scotty Barnes or an OG Anunoby. And so that lack of size does hurt the defense at times if the offense knows what they're doing. Now here we have a play where Scotty gets wiped out. So the Raptors going to play 4-on-5. So he gets tripped by Giannis Antetokounmpo. And here we see Jakob recovering out to Brook Lopez, who is one of, I say, 5-ish centers in the league who can legitimately hit this shot at a decent clip. Now he's going to recover, and he's going to maintain his balance. Just look at his footwork on this, right? So he basically stops what that offense was trying to do, which was a shot for Brook, right? And Brook's not going to launch it he's not going to launch it heavily contested, and his release is just slow enough on that shot that Jakob could easily contest that shot. He's not Dame Lillard, right? So in this case, you basically are able to wipe out a 4-on-5 disadvantage for your defense because Scotty Barnes gets wiped out of the play by getting tripped by Giannis Antetokounmpo, and now Scotty's late rotating because he's just kind of getting back into the play, and he's going to give a blow by, right? And watch how Jakob reacts. So just watch how he reacts and how the defense sort of works on a swing. And now OG Anunoby is going to have to react as well, and he starts to react, and he starts gapping the middle just in case there's a pass out to Brook Lopez, which of course there is. And now and then he basically rotates back to Grayson Allen, and Scotty's able to contest the shot, which misses. So great defense all around. Just watch it more from the perspective. Just watch it quickly again. So again, Jakob makes a lot of this possible. Just constantly reading and reacting to the situation the right way. Boom. that collapse right there. Because if Jakob doesn't come over, that's probably going to be a reverse layup. By collapsing the middle that way perfectly on time, and then Scotty getting right back out, it prevents a three from Brook Lopez in a pretty, at a period of the game, and this was all in the first quarter, but like, the Bucks came out hot, so stopping one of those threes was a really good thing. Now here we go, another one where Chris Middleton has Fred VanVleet on him, and this is just a great example of Fred VanVleet's point of attack defense, just not able to stay in front of anybody at this point, and boom. Jakob Poeltl is just going to stop that, so boom. And I mean, look, you empathize with Fred. He has to be really, really close to guys, because if he gives them space, they're going right over him. And he gets switched onto a guy who's 6'6", 6'7", like Chris Middleton. Might be 6'8", actually. I've seen Chris Middleton up close in person. He's a big dude. So in this case, you can't actually give any separation. And if you can't give separation and you lose that burst, this is I think a constant issue for the Raptors defense, is that Fred VanVleet is just not quick enough anymore as a point of attack defender to stay in front of anybody. And so everyone's got to help him. And in this case, Jakob and Scotty do a really good job. So yeah, so that's it for the film breakdown and the analytics session. If you guys want to call in really quickly and have a quick chat about this, otherwise we don't have to chat. I'm gonna get to some of these comments, and we're gonna do the giveaway for the game tomorrow, the G League game tomorrow. Friend Adam has generously decided to donate another. Oh, we have a super chat. Thank you so much. Sorry, I'll just get to this here. Just get into some of these comments. Oh, thank you so much, Larry. Really appreciate the super chat there, man. And yeah, I've been catching all of your work on Instagram, and holy crap, man. Like, geez, it's so cool. Like, I hate to like gush and fanboy over an athlete, keeping themselves in peak physical condition, but like I woke up this morning and I was like, I don't think I want to go to the gym. And then I'm seeing your video and I'm just like, all right, no excuses. Go to the gym. Get on with it. So thank you so much for the inspiration, man. Getting to some of these comments, we need a Tony Parker. You know who's turning himself into a bit of a Tony Parker clone? Don't look now. Markelle Fultz. He's been really good. Oh, thank you so much, Jonathan. Yeah, no, I'm really glad, and this is something that requires a bit of a deep dive, in my opinion, because the way that he's impacting the game is just, it's not something that's going to show up on a night-to-night basis in the box score. I mean, I'm glad that he's getting a lot of shot attempts because of his synergy with Scotty and with Fred, and because just generally he's so opportunistic and so good and so intelligent at flashing into the right corners. But I think that it requires a deep dive because this goes beyond this guy had 25 points, stuff. And I think it goes right into just generally how an offense needs to function and how a defense needs to function in order to stop someone from scoring. It's wow. Well, that might end all the Siakam and Julius Randle talk. Yeah, I agree, John. He's been really good. It's really beautiful to see Markelle Fultz having a sort of career resurgence. He's so awkward and herky-jerky, and just really genuinely was rooting for the guy to succeed, because I really feel bad about how he got sort of slandered for things that were totally out of his control in Philly. And the minute he got traded to Orlando, it was like, great, good start. He's super talented and so fun to watch. Honestly, one of my top 15, 20 players to watch. And that's crazy saying that about, a player on the Orlando Magic, but he's right up there. All right. So I guess we're going to end this chat a little bit early. Let's do the live stream. Let's do the giveaway. I just want to get all the details of the giveaway down, and then I will be able to do that. Give me 1 second to pull this up. Apologies. Give me 1 sec here, guys. Um, I think it was emailed to me. My bad. Apologies. Give me 1 second to get this together, guys. And a big shout out to Scott, who went to the last game with his sister, Scott 2K, and he shared some pictures with us, and it was really cool. So if you guys aren't checking out G League games, honestly, it's a great product. I really genuinely believe that. It's been really cool to watch. So the Raptors 9-5. Hold on. Schedule. I really should have prepared this better. I apologize, guys. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the game is tomorrow, and I'm not being able to find it on my. This is why live streams suck sometimes, because you genuinely have to be on point. And after being super on point with all my Jakob stuff, I completely forgot that this was a really major part of why I was doing this live stream. I apologize. And typically, I would probably be able to do this while a caller called and talked for like 2 seconds to split my attention between two things. But yeah, my bad. I am struggling. So struggling. Where is it? I know I got it. Oh my god. Okay, there we go. Got it. It's the Raptors 905 versus the College Park Skyhawks, and it is tomorrow at 7:30. So, in order to do this, I must ask a trivia question. So, this is 7:30 tomorrow night. If you cannot go, if you are not located in Toronto, if you're not willing to travel to Mississauga, whatever, do not respond to this. But let's see. How are we going to do this? Okay. I'm going to describe a player, and the first person to get it by the description is going to get 2 tickets. I believe it's 2 tickets or 4 tickets. So if it's 4 tickets, by all means, you'll be able to take more people. But I know it's at least 2 tickets. I believe it's 2 tickets. Okay, so the first person to get it, okay, wins. It is a former Raptor. This player is currently 56 years old. They are 6'3". They went to high school in New York. They also went to the same high school prep academy as Carmelo Anthony. Nope. Vince Carter's not 56 years old. Get off it. And neither is Antonio Davis. Nope. No one yet. Nope. They're currently a coach. Anybody yet? Oh, you got it. Damn, that was good. Post-Martinista, you get it. I was going for Rod Strickland. You got it. All right. Congratulations. Okay. So Post-Martinista, if you can please email me at pensarifilms@gmail.com, I will make sure that your tickets are sent to you. I believe it is 2 tickets, but yeah, I mean, if it's 4, then you get to bring 3 people with you, and that's great. And if you can't use the other 2, then just let me know, and I'll see if Scott wants some more. But yeah, that's really awesome. Great. How did you get that? That's amazing, man. Anyways, in closing, we're 54 minutes into this, and I promise it's going to stay under an hour. I've been in a bit of a slump lately. I'm gonna be honest. I've been in a bit of a slump. There's so much going on in my life. There's so many things happening at once. There's so many things I want to focus on, and sometimes you focus on too many things, and you get overwhelmed, right? So I've been a little bit tired. I haven't been sleeping as well. And, I got caught up in a lot of, the trade deadline was a bit of a disappointment for me. And that kind of sucked the wind out of sort of a lot of the content stuff that I wanted to do with this channel, because a lot of it was, predicated on the draft, and all I have to was like scrap all the notes of the top 4, top 5 picks. And I was kind of in the same boat as everyone who was rooting for Jalen Suggs to be drafted and had to throw out their notes. You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of like, ugh, now we're going in another direction. But, I can't tell you that. I mean, I listened to a podcast yesterday saying the Raptors could push the Bucks in the opening round. I'm not going to go that far, but, with Jakob Poeltl, you at least have a chance at making these series, making the games competitive. You're not going to get blown out by 35, 40 points every night. And who knows, right? I mean, look, Giannis is that, like, there's a theory about the playoffs. You always say, in a 7-game series, anything can happen. This is a bit of a platitude, but it is true, right? In a playing game or in a 7-game series, anything can happen. Someone can get hot, someone can get cold, someone can get injured. It happens, right? So a season is a lot to spend or waste or whatever. And, the Raptors made a calculated gamble that Jakob Poeltl would make a lot of their problems go away in terms of rim defense, because that's really a big part of it. The other thing he solves is the efficiency. Now, I mentioned in a live when I was doing the stats breakdown, if you haven't checked that out, that's about 2-3 lives ago, where I said like sort of a stats breakdown of the Raptors. One of the things I was noting is that the Raptors are elite at so many things and disastrous at so many things. Like, they're elite at taking care of the ball in terms of turnovers. They're elite at they're pretty good at rebounding the basketball. They're really elite at getting steals. They're elite at taking more shots than their opponent. They're elite at crashing the glass. Like, I mean, there's a lot of things they're elite at. The one glaring thing, 2 glaring things really, is, paint defense has been abysmal with Siakam, flanking the back, and also just the shooting percentages have been awful. And obviously, if I tell you that Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam are your top 2 guys, like, you have other teams out there with leading options who are in the 60 to 62%, 65%. We looked at Joel Embiid's numbers. I mean, that's 48 points per 100 possessions, coming at nearly 65% true shooting. And you're sitting at, 30 points per 100 coming from Siakam at 10% less. Yeah, it's going to be a really big difference. Giannis and Tatum and, the top teams have top guys who are just more efficient than your top guys. And since your top guys take the vast majority of the shots, it's gonna make you a lot less efficient. And it just so happens that other teams also have role players that are very efficient, right? The guy like Steven Adams, like, he shoots really well. I mean, he's not dynamic at all, but he shoots well. So when he does make an attempt at scoring, it's a very efficient attempt. There are a lot of guys like this. Daniel Gafford is fairly efficient, guys who just finish around the paint and stuff are generally going to be very efficient, right? So having a guy who sort of can act as a release valve for, when one of your guards gets in trouble, and you can just give him the ball and he can just do something with it. He can fling it to the corner. Everything we talk about in terms of basketball, there's a play yesterday that I flashed of Pascal Siakam over dribbling and then, getting a turnover as he passed to Will Barton. Well, one of the things that I mentioned on the Instagram, if you're not following Pensari Basketball on the Instagram, please do, because we talk about different things on there than we do on here. But one of the things that I said was that's what Scotty's always talking about, which is side-to-side reversals. We want to be able to reverse to the other side, because if the defense loads up the middle or the left, the right corner is almost always open. And if you have players who are decent enough shooters from that right corner, it's probably going to be a disproportionately uncontested shot for that player. And if that's what your offense is generated, don't cheat it. Make the pass, make the play. What Jakob does is he'll flash to passing angles that he knows based on who has the ball, who can make the pass, and where they need to make the pass so that they don't get stuck. So really what he's doing is he's freeing up Fred and Pascal in such a big way to be better playmakers. But they just have to trust him to be sort of an intermediary between them and the assist. That's not always going to help their numbers, but it is going to help the team. And the more they trust him, the better they're going to be. And the more they trust him with the ball close to the rim, I mean, he's the most efficient player on this team. Like, it's not even close. There's nothing that is more efficient than really a Jakob Poeltl drive or a push shot at this point. There's nobody who's a lights-out three-point shooter like a Steph Curry where you're like, I don't know about, no. There's nobody who's more efficient than him right now. I really don't mind 18 shot attempts from him. I don't mind 20 shot attempts from him. Give it to him. Give it to him and let him score. Let him, collapse the defense a little bit. This is going to be really hard for people to sort of stomach, believe, or think about. But I really don't think that there's a really big gap in terms of how I view his impact on the game and Fred's or Pascal's. As a Raptor thus far, he has been on that level. And yeah, so that's where I stand. I gave the trade a D initially. I'm willing to say I was wrong. 100%. I don't think it's a D. I don't think, if you're able to bring him back at a reasonable contract, this might end up becoming like a C plus, B minus, that type of deal. I still think there are gaps with his shooting that will, pop up in the playoffs as teams aggressively plan for this. But going into next year, on an average night where teams aren't scouting you or whatever, his impact is great. And what I'm really impressed by, encouraged by, is the defense. Like the defense has, I looked at the numbers for him on the San Antonio Spurs and I was like, he was better 2 years ago, and he was. But also what was different 2 years ago is the Spurs were really trying to win, and they haven't really been trying to win or field competitive rosters. They've been a bit of a mess this year, and it's really encouraging and very good to see. And I'm very, very happy that the Raptors did not buy on the downside with Jakob. And I really hope that he's able to continue this for the next couple of years because the Raptors will be better off for it. Anyway, just over an hour, kept it pretty clean. Yeah. All right. Scott 2K, Slot Place 2K, what are you saying? Okay, let me know as in if there's more tickets. Okay, absolutely. Alrighty guys, have a great day or great evening, and I'll catch you on the next live, which will be on Wednesday. Cheers. And yeah, let's see how many points Julius Randle has after tonight, but 70 would be pretty wild. Oh, Jonathan, thank you so much. Jeez. Thank you so much for the super chat, man. Very clutch. I was literally about to end the live. Honestly, I feel like that's so generous, given the fact that you're also a moderator here. Like that's so huge, man. This channel is really, I don't know. I look at my YouTube analytics sometimes, and nobody wants to look at 28 days of content and you're down 40 subs. Like nobody wants that. I know subscribers are a vanity metric, but I realized that that wasn't the only thing that was down over the last month. And when I was talking about my slump, I really was in a bit of a slump. I'm just pushing through these, and I don't skip. I haven't skipped. This is one thing in my life that I haven't skipped, which is a post-game live for the last 2.5, 3 months. Win, lose, draw, terrible game, good game, whatever, just do it. And we're just doing these, and I'm going through the motions sometimes, and I'm realizing that I might be losing a bit of the edge or the preparation or the love for it. And I realized my chess score was also down massively over the last month. I peaked at 1207 or something in chess, and I was honestly 998. A lot of my games were, I was looking at some of my games, and chess.com gives you a feedback on your games afterwards. I was honestly having games where I had 0 blunders, 2 mistakes, 0 missed wins, and I played a game 5 days ago where I had 6 blunders, four mistakes, 6 blunders, and it's impossible to play that badly. I was playing a 400 level player, and my rating just kept declining. Well, yesterday or the day before, something really clicked, and I'm now back up to 1100. So yeah, 1110, and I'm killing people now. I'm back. Jason Choi, thank you so much. Blitz, no, it's Rapid. So I've been playing Rapid. So yeah, definitely do message me, man. I'm very curious to play you in chess. So if anyone wants to play me in chess, you just hit me up at the same email, and we'll play chess. We'll have that type of community. Anyways, yeah, and look, I promise, someone said the other day, the John Hamilton, that's a very good point. The not sleeping will do that. And someone said, I don't know, I read a comment, they said, that beef, it's definitely going to come back. I promise you, it's not coming back. Not doing it ever again. There's no part of me that ever wants to sink to that level. I remember there was 4 months ago that I had an issue with somebody, and I remember addressing it on a video, and I said, I'm not going to name your name. And I was so proud of myself for that. I was like, yeah, you address it and you don't know their name. And then suddenly I just kind of lost my way and I started calling everyone out. So, you know, this is the cool thing about doing these lives is I guess we're just sort of, I don't know, watching me float through this and try to navigate my way through it. There's going to be months where the content is going to be off. It's going to be off point. Maybe I'm going to lose my touch for a bit. Maybe it's not going to be as great. But, you know, again, field of vision, long-term vision. 5 years from now, 3 years from now, it's going to be a drop in the hat. So, yeah. I don't know who Cassian is, but sure. I hope that's not something insulting. But thank you so much to everybody for tuning in. And, yeah, make sure to hit subscribe if you haven't. And make sure to hit like on your way out. Cheers.